Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with another episode of Speaking My Mind. Hope you guys are all doing well. Well, let's get straight into this subject. I want to talk about Reform UK. I don't know if I've done a Reform UK one episode of Speaking My Mind where I just literally speak my mind. But and sometimes I get flustered about my thoughts on reform whenever I talk about them. So I'm hoping with this I could be a bit more clear about my thoughts on them, because I feel that they have tapped into a lot of anger and frustration of what many people in the UK feel about a perception or a presence that their voices are not heard anymore, that nobody listens to them, and that reform seems to be the only ones that appeal to them. And I can completely understand that segment. I can understand that, when you feel like the system that we have, the two main parties who have been in power for so long, there's definitely a feeling that you just feel disconnected and that people in power just don't understand you. And you really think that reform are the answer? Well, I think also that some people, rather than just saying they're reform supporters, I think they're just voting without doing any research or any thought or any process, because quite frankly that's the party they see more online than any other party. Most of some of you watching this will probably agree to disagree that most of your information that you get about politics or any news whatsoever, whether you do it, is tied to Reform UK and Nigel Farage. And some of you probably don't listen to Reform and Nigel Farage 24/7, and some of you go on the premise that, yeah, this guy sounds pretty good. He sounds like a decent bloke. He comes across like someone who speaks for me. And that's the perception that you have of him and Reform UK. Or I think it's fair to say that probably not so many people probably would be backing Reform UK if Nigel Farage wasn't in the party. I don't think Richard Tice really spoke for people, but maybe some of you thought maybe he spoke for you, down in the comments below if you thought that. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say the vast majority of you believe, some of you reform supporters back reform based off Nigel Farage, based off things he said. He said he wants to make Britain great again. He wants to, the main topic obviously is immigration. Many of you feel that whenever you go out and you go into your homes, and that's the thing, that's the real reality. Many of you, when you come out of your homes, wherever you are, you feel that it's not the same country as it used to be when you were younger, or your generation, and you feel it's just not the same as it used to be. The reality is that you can't go back in time. You can't go back to what things were like before. So it's all about going forward, but how we go forward and what ways do we go forward. And even in my lifetime, I'm in my late 30s, and even I, throughout my life, I have from my times in school, from my bit of time in college, even all my time in work, and I've worked in retail for 15 plus years. I've worked and I've dealt with all kinds of people, both within London. I've worked even outside of London, not far out. Now obviously, granted, I can't speak for people who live outside London. I can't speak for the rural areas. I can't speak maybe for your area. And you can only tell me what you know. And for all I know, what you could be saying is a bunch of BS. I don't know that for sure. I can only go by my experiences, and the experiences for what people tell me. But when I read comments and I listen to Reform supporters, I see nothing more. I see more anger rather than common sense about when they discuss things. It's just a lot of anger and a lot of hatred, rather than actually having proper discussions online. And rather than listen to a difference of opinion, you just turn to slander and insults. And I say to you, How does that benefit anyone? But anyways, I'll go back to what I was saying. So, like I said, I worked more than 15 years in retail. Okay. Yeah, I used to work in Edgware. Now, those who don't know Edgware is like north of London. It's a very Indian, Pakistani, more. A lot of those race, I would say, is more there. Okay. So, that was where I had my first job. Actually, as well, I used to worked in that area. My first job was in there. I think I worked there for like 3-4 years. Now, I was very, very young. I wasn't so much into politics back then. But even though at that point, that time in my life, I didn't have a problem with working with the people that did. I never had an issue with anybody, with any of the colleagues that anybody that had, regarding the fact that they're not English or that they're not white. You know, a lot of my superiors were of Indian or Pakistani or whatever. Never fazed me at all. Like, if I was treated indifferently, then there would be an issue, but I was never treated indifferently. Now, that's not the same for perhaps some of you in the comments, and feel free to give your story down below if you have a difference of stories. But I'm just sharing my experience, because I do think that sharing my experience might help some people's view things differently. Yeah. So even at one point where I worked, I was the only white person for a few months. I was the only white person working in that store. The only white person. Okay. Right. Again, did that affect my job? No. Did it affect my relationship with my work colleagues? No. Did I still was able to do my job? Yes. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. And I didn't have this issue. So, like everything, you always have agree to disagree with people and whatnot. But none of the issues that I ever had during that job that I had anything to do at all to the fact that they were of a different skin colour, of a different religion or nationality or whatever. None of that had anything to do with any of my issues that I have relating to my job or my work. That's a fundamental fact. Another place I used to work in, I actually worked for the time in central London. That was a very mixed bag of Europeans, Africans, Asians and whatnot in the store that I worked in as well. I think that was in Bayswater. I think it was a couple of months. Yeah, Bayswater, central London. And it was a nightmare for me to get there and back. I remember that. But again, like, none of the problems that I had there had anything to do with the colour of their skin, their nationality or their race. Again, I'm just speaking from my experience. Again, I don't know what yours was like, but and even when I was a manager and I ran my own store, again, I didn't have any. Again, it's all right, don't worry. Sorry, there's a dog jumping on me right now. But even then, I didn't have any issues. So it's I've totally lost my train of thought because the dog decided to jump on me. But yeah, I'll go back to when I was a manager, guys. So even when I was a manager, like, I was the only guy in that store. I can't remember the full situation at the time, but it was a small shop that I ran, and all the people that were working in there, believe it or not, this was outside London. So this shop I was working in was, I was the only white male, and all the staff were female. They were all white women. Again, Did that bother me? No. All that mattered to me was, could they do the job? Could they do the performance? That was all that mattered. It didn't bother me. It didn't make me think, oh, we need to have more diversity. No, this is the situation that I landed myself in when I got the job. It wasn't a case of, oh, I need to sack 1 or 2 people and bring in diversity. No, that's not my thought process. My thought process is, I've got a job to do. I've got a job to do. This is A, B, C, got to get on with these things. Like, who gives a fuck about culture war bollocks? Like, that's my mind. That was my mindset all the time. There was never this premise that I had a problem with people with regards to their skin colour and their skin colour and nationality and whatnot. But now, without a shadow of a doubt, some people have very different stories. Many of you have stories, and where some of you have had, where felt that you were felt, and I'm going to use the word felt, that you have been treated differently based off whether it's the colour of your skin, whether it's regarding your job, or perhaps maybe even like, I even know a story about a church that was run by a white pastor and then got changed, then a black pastor, a priest, took over, and eventually all the people moved on. Now, does that paint a picture of people taking over? Yes, it does. But does that mean that everyone is taking over? No, it does not. But I do think that I've heard stories of those experiences, so I understand why some reform people feel the way they feel about immigration. But if you're seriously a reform supporter, and you seriously have these concerns about immigration, open up and tell me serious stories where immigration has directly affected you. Not just taking back sovereignty, BS. Give me genuine, real stories where they've affected you. Like, how has immigration directly affected your life specifically? How has someone of a different skin colour or nationality directly affected your life? I would like to know in the comments. To give me a better understanding of why you think the way you think, why you feel the way you feel. Because for me, I've always said this many times on my YouTube channel, one of the most important things is trying to understand people and try to put yourself in the shoes of other people. Now, insulting me doesn't get you anywhere. All it does is get you blocked. So if you can have a constructive conversation, then let's have a constructive conversation. But don't just come on saying we've got to vote reform and get these immigrants out. Context. Give me context. Yeah? Make me try and understand why you think the way you think, why you feel the way you feel. Why reform is the best political party for you. I've gone more on immigration rather than reform, but you know, even throughout all my life experiences, you know, I have heard stories where people feel indiscriminate. But I'm certainly not going to blame all my life problems for immigrants. But that's my life story. I want to hear your stories down in the comments below. I know this has been a long-winded one, but I generally want to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. But yeah, those are some of my stories and my feelings about reform and immigration. Let me know yours down in the comments below. Hit that like button, share, subscribe and whatnot. And yeah, let's hear what you guys have to say. Catch you all very, very soon.